we have no education on politics actually, down to your local representative. So at least get educated about it. It's really affecting your life. Just on the Facebook is good at getting information to people. It's just not the right information. We just have to figure out a way to get the information to them like they do. I hope we can come up with that, or at least an idea towards it.
This is Discourse. We at it again with that heat. You feel me? So in this episode, we're going to talk about community organizing. And, you know, throughout the past episodes, we've been talking about mutual aid and really just being about that action. You feel me? So, like, that's a big part of organizing and uplifting our community is being about the action, being about the practice of the work, right? So not just only talking about it, but what does that practice look like in our own communities, you feel me? So we're going to jump into a great discussion, you feel me? We all here rocking with it, you know what I'm saying? And we're going to just jump right into it. And I think it's really important, especially that we're having this conversation, thinking about 2020, this election, and everyone says, vote, nigga, vote. That's the first thing people say is like, vote. I'm like, bruh, what is voting really going to do in this white supremacist system, this capitalist system, and how are we going to overthrow these systems just by integrating it, right? Like, I just seen a panel of like black people arguing about Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Like, which crack and which devil are you going to vote for? Like, we are expecting our freedom to come on behalf of white people. Like, for me, that's out, but we're going to talk about solutions and mutual aid. So, you feel me? Why is this an important discussion for y'all?
Okay, so I think it's important that we start to break the structures that voting is like the end-all be-all for black people. In particular, it's been sold to us as like a tool of liberation, and unfortunately, that right to vote, because it had to become a right, because we just didn't get it, and then when we first got it, we still only had 3/5 in the system, right? So it's like we have to start breaking it down structurally of like what that right to vote even meant. And the fact that it was a right, so that's something I can participate in or I can opt out of, right? It's not something that I'm supposed to have or that I have to do. But when we really look at us being in 2020, it's like every 2 to 4 years, that's the only time you hear voting even come up as a thing, because that's when they need the black vote. And the fact that you can even call it a vote outside of how everyone else votes, or the fact that you can categorize votes based off of black vote versus white vote versus the Latino vote, is ridiculous in and of itself. And so it's like, how do we start to teach our people to liberate themselves, like you said, outside of thinking leadership comes from a white person, or liberation is going to come from a white person who is never going to stand outside of themselves or marginalize themselves to get to this place. I think about how all these candidates have these plans for Black America, but it's like, okay, like this is a great plan on paper, but how do you then convince your 100 racist people sitting in the Senate to move forward with your plan specifically for people that don't look like that? And that is why we now need to get out of like that whole mind frame around just voting this one person in is going to create some type of change, and start talking about what it looks like on a community level to create change that is actually going to affect your day-to-day life. Where, like I said, where your day-to-day life actually happens.
Yeah, I want to add, that it's something I always say is that voting is one of the many tools, but something to also remember is that the system wasn't supposed to work for us. Mm-hmm. So in kind of acknowledging that, like, yes, having, let's say, a Republican president feels different on some levels for some people than having, I guess, a more liberal-minded president, which the Democrats aren't that liberal, but, here we are. But it's just like, I'm not going to lie and say there isn't a tangible difference at first for some people when a Republican president is in office versus when a Democratic president is in office. However, something that I always talk about is there's so many other things that we could be doing, even if we're just talking about the political system. Like, the Electoral College is still in play. We had the whole 2016 election, which they rigged. Like, I really would love older black people, and black people also in the younger generations, to just acknowledge shit is rigged. it's probably always been rigged, but it's way more obvious now. So we need to stop playing into this almost delusion that things are going to pan out if we just play by these rules. So it's like, yes, vote if that makes you feel a way, but also acknowledge that this is rigged, so what else can we do? Like, if the Democrats wanted to do anything about the Electoral College, or making Election Day a holiday, or making sure there's no voter IDs, or making sure that people can take off work more easily and get there and vote, like making voting easier, the systems and the processes, if they wanted to do that, it's been 4 years and they have not done shit, so they don't care. And okay, let's acknowledge that. So then what else, you know?
Right. I think it's super important to me because I think you're kind of hinting on it. You were hinting on it too with like the go vote. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, all your ancestors died for you to vote, so it's your right to go vote. And it's like,
They were fighting for freedom. Like, they wanted to be free, and like they got handed voting, which I get, but
Right. They actually weren't fighting for the right to. I mean, yeah, there were instances where they had to build their way up out of being enslaved.
And some of them was murdered and assassins,
exactly. So it's like the same thing with playing Monopoly with my cousins. Like whoever's the bank immediately gets corrupted. You know what I'm saying? So you vote with your money. So if we're talking about voting, yes, for sure, put your money where your mouth is. That's the lobbying is where the voting is happening, right? So I think that's important to just shift the narrative to like, no, you shouldn't. This is the third time you walked into your kid's school because you want to go vote in the gymnasium. Like, really, you should have been voting this whole time with your money. Put your money where the people are actually supporting you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think having this conversation is a chance to like start talking about like divesting from white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchal systems and start investing in people. Like, stop putting so much time and energy into systems that you talk about that were clearly designed to marginalize and oppress, and start thinking of other ways in which you can actually change the material day-to-day needs of folks.
I like that because as a prison abolitionist, a lot of people, when I even say I'm a prison abolitionist, or I say something like in jails, people say, what about the who and what about the what? And they only think about the tear down part. So it's great that you bring that up because it's about building as well. So one thing I like to remind people is while we're doing this, a part of our community organizing is we're building within the system. So there's a spot out in the city, they do something, I think it might be the Argentine Project. They're not problematic, they got some stuff they need to get out. But I believe they do something called the Safe Outside the System. Oh, we're gonna call them out. I think they do something called the Safe Outside the System. And what it is a structure that helps people know how, I believe it's party, right? But I've used it to help people know how to just navigate outside of calling the police. Because one thing I ask people when we're doing certain stuff and we find ourselves in conflict and somebody's ready to call the police, I ask them, what is the end result of the police? So say you get in a car accident. Let's just take it something very not mad. Say you're in a car accident and what's the first thing people usually do? Call the police. How long do you usually wait for them? Hours, right? So what was the point of that? Are there any alternatives that are in place? That means we gotta get, it makes me think of you calling out like legal people of different like skill levels to come together for us to come out alternatives. What is it that our insurance company needs? Do they need something where a notary republic signs something, or do they need something where a pig signs something? It's kind of like we figure out what those real rules are so we can start coming up with these alternatives in our community so we can stop relying on the system, because the system is not, we already know the tools of, you said it before, the tools that we use in the system is not going to get our free. We have Barack Obama as a president. We got probably 1 in 5 of us, one of our grandparents got Barack up in the fucking house as if that's a cousin. And you walk up in the house and you like, no, that nigga. Like, but they got him all on the mantle in the middle of your graduation picture, all up in there with the family. And you like, what the fuck?
why is this nigga looking at me right now, man? I'm just talking my chicken shit.
Him and his whole family that don't give a fuck about you. He's a warmonger. He's like, you know, he was enemy. You know what I'm saying?
He dropped more bombs than Bush.
Yeah, I understand, but it's that it makes me think of what is it, the Fanon book, what is it, Black Skin, White Mask, and it makes me think of even Kwame Ture and talking about how what it means to have a black person representing something. What is their politic? You know what I'm saying?
I think also, you know, because whenever we talk about, I guess, community work and accountability and stuff like that, we talk a lot about systemic stuff, which we need to and we should. And I think also talking about the personal is very important too. Like what happens when someone close to us does something wrong, and how as a community we have historically failed a whole lot of people because our gut reaction is to this is our friend. So, you know, do we really want to X, Y, and Z? And it's like I feel like a lot of community work. There's two things I kind of want to keep a hold of here. Is that the most marginalized person or the person who was harmed in this particular scenario? Because especially amongst queer people, harmer versus the person who perpetuated the harm gets complicated, very complicated. But whoever was harmed in that specific situation, solution should be led by that person. But also there's the atonement that the person who harmed must do, or the consequences that that person must face can't be a punitive thing. Like the desire for revenge and to make people feel what you felt, that's the parts of the person who was harmed that we shouldn't carry into this. A lot of this, you know, like the people who do not want community accountability or don't want community work because they feel like it isn't strong enough, it's because a lot of them want revenge, but then also a lot of them have been failed by the community. So I definitely want, when we talk about the community work we could be doing or the action we could be doing, I don't want us to get lost in the systemic, because a lot of people have been like failed.
It kind of reminded me like other conversations we had where Delancey was like, okay, that sounds good. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's not gonna just show up that easily.
I think, but I think that kind of goes into like when you start to get like a abolition politic around how it's like, yeah, we want to abolish prisons today, but we know it's not gonna happen today. So like, what small steps do you take to remove things from your communities that are toxic or harmful, right? So we can't abolish prisons today, but we know that we have tools available to us to get less police officers in our neighborhoods. And so what steps do we take within working with council people? And that's also another part of this too, is teaching Black people that it's not what you vote for at the highest office, it's what you're voting for or what you're not voting for, because a lot of y'all locally ignore the school boards, and that's why you could have a Mayor Pete win mayor of a county with 8,000 votes and also still run for president of the United States, right? Because it's locally, what did you do to prevent that from happening, right? And so the conversation has to shift to, okay, if we want to have better community, then we have to actually realize who has power in our communities, because it's not the president of the United States, it's typically your mayors, your councilmen. Your school boards have some amazing power, which is something I'm even learning. Like, whoever like the head of school boards are, like in your communities, make a lot of decisions around districting, around things that typically will harm Black kids at the end of the day. And we all know schooling is where Black kids start, right? That's the starting point for all of us because of how systems work. And so it's important that as community we start to teach one another, hey, like, yeah, I know the presidential election is coming up, but can you tell me who your councilman is?
That makes me think about
who's on your school board.
That makes
Can you name just any of the actual people who are causing violence and trying your daily life?
Right.
Because it's not necessarily the Republican president of the United States in every instance. And that's easy for media to spin it as all of your downtrodden, and it's easy for the Democrats to spin it as all of your problems are because this man is in office. And it's like, but you're the senator of my state and you're trash too. So it can't just be him because you've been the senator of my state for 27 years. And so it was trash for a very long time, right? And so again, that's when you have to start teaching people a politic that doesn't look like the national propaganda of vote or die. And it's like, well, we're gonna die anyway, whether you vote or not. So let's start to work on systems and abolishing systems that made you even think that was your existence, was to vote or die.
That makes me think about how like Rain may be the only like person that identifies with like parenthood, but how could we all get involved in the school district? Like just because we don't have kids, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like what would it mean for us to show up to something with you because something's going on in your kid's school
You see
district?
Discourse gonna pull up.
It's like,
I don't think we can.
I think no, yes you can. It's public.
I feel like
It depends on where you are now. I know in New York, you don't have to be a part, like you don't have to have a kid in school. Think about it, you don't got nephews, nieces, like you don't have to have a kid in school, your cousins. You feel me?
yeah. Yo, I feel you're right. Absolutely. I just feel like it's so corrupt already
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, no, we should just start over with some other shit.
Yeah.
Because like you're trying to be included into something, because you can see how schooling could work so well. Because everybody has that one good teacher that was like, yo, if she wasn't there, I don't know what I would do. You know what I mean? But it's always one, and she got 3 jobs probably.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's hard to even contribute to something that you know that's not really for the students or for the teachers.
But look how many people vote. That's not for the people.
Exactly.
But I think it's about like capturing the imagination of people, and like I think that's the job of radicals, of like revolutionaries, is like to show people that there is an alternative to voting.
Right.
That there is, that the people are the people who have power, not the system. Even though the system has a lot of control, like ultimately the people, if we look over the discourse of history, the people have the power.
Who was that out there in Oakland? The moms for right?
Moms
Moms
for
for
Housing.
Housing.
Yeah.
Yo, they held that down. They showed us something that like we all. That is a direct
Tangible
action.
action.
That they said we not going nowhere. And when we think about like power privilege things we've talked about, like what type of power privilege they had? Black women in the crib with their babies, and they sent the military there for them.
Yeah, I think the people have power to an extent, because like the people have power, sure, but then the people get killed by, you know what I mean, like by the powers that be, you know what I mean. So like I feel like any tangible change, it sucks because like if and when it is too radical for certain people, you know what I mean, like then they straight up 86 your shit, like they just blast you in your fucking face, and that's the end. That's the end of that. You know?
I'm ready to die about this shit.
I mean, like Pierre said, they can't kill all of us.
Right.
No, I know, but I'm saying like, it's like I'm saying that's why people haven't really moved forward with more radical action, because like when you like motherfuckers are scared. You know what I'm
So
saying?
that is like erasure of so many
Facts,
radical things.
MTA. They just did that radical shit with MTA where they was literally jumping stalls, putting Gorilla Glue in the shit. I guess we kind of like
People still get shit done.
Who?
I'm just trying to
Who is
rationalize
scared?
it. Like I'm
Who
just
is
trying to
scared?
like it's there is a fear component to it, which I totally understand, and like that not everybody's built for this shit. You know what I'm saying? So
I
like,
don't go to direct actions. I keep it real. I can't, because one time I was at a direct action with my little sister. We was at a protest and we got chained in by the police, and I looked at her and I seen how scared she was, and I'm the big sibling and I'm supposed to take care of her, and there was nothing I could do, and I had to come up with a way to like get us out of the police thing, and luckily I did, because 100 people got locked up that night, and that would have been the first night my little sister got locked up, because she out there following her older sibling out. And yes, it's a great thing to do. Yes, I have radicalized my siblings, but you're right. Like there's risk in it, but who gets to take that risk? Because there's some people who throw bottles and they don't give a fuck.
So then, I guess to my response, or not response, but like my counter to that is like, for example, like somebody like Pierre, right? Like your whole act like on Twitter is queering psych, right? But how much of you did you have to sacrifice, and how much white bullshit did you have to put up with to get to your position where you can make a tangible difference? So like that, you know, like it is a racist system. It is like it's not. It was never meant for us to thrive in. Or it's never meant to work for us, right? But like it sucks that you have to do it. But like sometimes you gotta play it their way and sacrifice a lot of yourself to get in to make the change from the inside.
I want to play. Well, let me clarify
Trying to
something.
survive, man.
Yeah, hold on. Let me.
Yeah, like
just-
survival has a
hold on.
lot.
Let's get one mic.
Let me clarify
One mic.
something real quick. So let me explain, I guess, what I've done and what I'm doing, and why it isn't exactly quite that. One, I don't believe there's a such thing as changing anything from the inside. If you play in the dirt, you get
Dirty.
That's what that is. You get dirty once you dirty. Like, if you can't change anything from the inside, what I've done and what I suggest any black person who has the spoons and the energy and the power to go into certain professions is you take the skills and you leave. And you don't do the thing with the skills they want you to do. Because I'm not living the life that I'm supposed to. I'm not living the life I was trained to. I'm not living the life they want me to live. Like, I've been stopped at every opportunity. Something that's supposed to have taken me, honestly, at most 2 years, has taken me over 4 years. Because many people have not wanted me to get the license I have right now. I've almost had to drop out of grad school. I've been fired from jobs. Like, my licensure hours have been stolen. Like, things have been taken from me. And it's like, yes, I've had to sacrifice a lot of myself to get here to this place. But it wasn't with the idea that I could change anything from the inside. And it wasn't with the idea that it wasn't for white people or for the people in power. I don't give a shit about them. Like, if I did, I wouldn't have chosen this career. I really would be taking these skills elsewhere and making so much money. To be honest, I would not be a therapist if I was thinking about white people at all. That's why my account on Twitter is the way it is. Like, I'm for black people, and I've always been, and I wouldn't put myself through this. So, like, when in terms of direct action for people in academic spaces, because this is kind of where I'm kind of leaning, academic spaces or in professional spaces, don't get so caught up in the milestones that white people say you have to hit. Okay, PhD, but who is that for? Okay, research, but who is that for? Like, you know,
Data.
you could really stop at a master's degree for a lot of stuff and just take your work and go into the community. Because working in research eventually leads to policy, sure, but how long does that take? And will we all be alive by the time that happens? You know, so like, take the things the things that you can get from white people and bounce and pour that into your community, because that's what we need. And also, it's going to be a harder road for you. And that's the sacrifice that comes with working in your community, because they're going to make it hard. I've poured a lot of money because I don't have any mentors. I don't have mentors in this therapy shit. There's like everyone coming to me is either my peer or is just starting out. So I end up having to give advice to therapists that are coming up, because no one above me wants to really work with me if they know the totality of who I am. So yes, there's sacrifice and there's fear, because I am scared. I don't know what my future's gonna look like. I almost didn't have a career. If you talked to me a year ago about where I thought I would be, I would tell you I wasn't gonna be anything. So a year changes things. But that fear and that struggle that comes with it, and you just have to acknowledge it. Because yes, I could be working for Google or for the government. With the kind of skills I have, I could be working for the government, making a shit ton of money, but who would I be? What would I be participating in? And would I be making the world better for myself? Because yes, I could be making money, or even to all the billionaires out there, yeah, you're making money, but eventually black billionaires, the tide is going to turn to you, and everyone else is going to be gone, and you're going to be alone. So it's like, when you are afraid to speak up for others, eventually the eye turns to you, and who's going to save you then?
And that shit gonna come to you regardless of, like, whether or not you're doing, in my opinion, whether you're doing organizing work or not, like, white supremacist, terrorist violence is going to come. And it might not be you, but it's gonna come to someone, right? So whether you was a Panther or not, like, black people in Oakland felt violence from OPD, right? If you look at Black Wall Street, like, that was the quote unquote, right, black capitalist community that you're supposed to have. You're supposed to pick yourself up from your Timbs and your bootstraps and shit and make this better life. And what happened to Black Wall Street? You feel me? That shit was bombed, right? So I think thinking about like how do we create these structures is super important. But I think one thing I wanted to ask y'all is like we have like abolitionists here, we have radicals, but of course we don't all start there. You feel me? Like shit. I'm not proud to say it, but I did vote for Obama like when I was like 18. Like fuck that nigga. But I voted for him. You feel me? And like since then, my politics have grown, and you feel me? And like I'm critiquing Obama and critiquing even just the thought of like integrating into a president. Yeah, he was the first black president, but he was the enemy of our people.
Right.
So the question I want to ask is, how did y'all's politics grow into this politics that y'all have now? Because I think that's important for folks who are tapping in with us to learn about those books or those moments that you had to grow in that was your politics.
I would say reading, but if you're just saying that is like dangerous because it's like, who are you reading? If you tell niggas to go read and they pick up Black Privilege by Charlamagne the God, now we got a whole different situation.
Hey, I'm black and I'm privileged.
Yeah. I think like,
I ain't got no privilege.
yeah. Like, really, like reading true radicals, my nigga, not just radical, and I mean radical in the sense of like they have like inclusive politics that includes all black people, right? Because you can go get some shit that's just spewing black patriarchy, my nigga, or black capitalism. Like, no, don't read that shit. Read true black radicalism, not just only black radicalism, but like radicalism abroad. You know what I'm saying? And then reading texts, articles, whatever, from the most marginalized and oppressed. They shit usually is it's really bottom up type shit.
That made me think about like a lot of black dudes, like whether you go to their house or you talk about with them what they're reading, they don't have no black women authors.
They don't. Niggas
Never
just
read
get all
a
that
black-
shit from motherfuckers that's spewing the same.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 48 Laws of Power, 33 Strategies of War, and you like, I'm gonna tell, and this is no shade to my dad.
You telling the
I love
truth.
you.
You
I
telling the
love
truth.
you, Dad.
I
But that was, I've read those books. Because those were the books that, when my dad was, and then it also makes me think about like, as an abolitionist, right, it starts to make me think about like, our people in prison, right? And like what books they have access to. And it starts making me think about banned books. And it starts making me think about like the books that they're not allowed to have access to. Why are they not allowed to have access to this? Why are black men not reading more literature by black women? Why are black men not reading, black cis men not reading more literature by non-cis black masculine people of that sort? So I'm with you, and I think that's when it gets in a slippery slope, and it's like straight up like my homegirl got the Liberation Through Reading book club, and that book club was like one of the dopest book clubs for me to get a part of because I keep a high. I don't always remain as like active because y'all know I have many jobs, and also life. So like sometimes it's good to have because it's a space. Even when I read the books at my own pace, there's a space set up that I can go back and read through the conversation and watch people unpack that. And for me, I would just say that, like, when I think about community organizing, I think about all these various black trans-led orgs that have gotten started, and a lot of why they have shifted or whatever it may have be. They're black trans woman-led org and they're working with the police now. It's because even though it was started by literally a black trans woman with abolition lens, lack of political education. So I think about how important political education is in everything we do. I even wonder how y'all do political education with the breakfast program. Like, is there anything, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do y'all incorporate, and it don't gotta be like this heavy, we gotta read a chapter this week and talk about it. But like, maybe you just hand out something with a quote, you know what I'm saying? And now niggas is opening their mind. Like we said before, like the most creative teachers, the best teachers are teaching you and you don't even fucking know you're learning.
Yeah,
You know?
it's something, it's a good point you bring up because it's something I haven't done yet, but something I plan to do, like with the whole political education and like systemic education and stuff, is like, I'm barely black and I have 2 white ass sons. You know what I'm saying? So why do y'all, every time I say that, y'all do that shit? It's true, but like,
I never heard of barely black.
but listen, but you know what I mean? Like systemic, like, you know what I mean? Like I benefit from a lot of shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I mean. So like, and I have 2 white ass sons, like, they not black at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did not give enough of my blackness to them for it to show on their faces and on their bodies, right? But they were both born in the Bronx, right? They're gonna grow up in the Bronx. they're gonna go to public school in the Bronx, and they're gonna have black friends, right? So the way that I plan to teach my sons, at least, to me, the way I plan to educate them politically and systemically is to use their privilege as white kids. You know what I'm saying? As white, you know what I'm saying? Like,
They're black.
yeah.
Okay, they're white assumed.
Okay.
Black.
It
You don't
is
stop
black.
calling them babies white.
But have you seen?
I have, and they're adorable.
You're
Remember he had
you're
this little
white
rubber
person.
face? They're white assumed. People
Okay.
don't look
Yeah,
at them and
people
not
look
think
at them
they're
and
black.
say that
So
They
okay,
black.
so then,
Your
so
kids
sys-
are.
okay, so systemically, does that matter?
Yes,
To
to
me,
me, check
yes.
off a box on an application.
They gonna say
they're
black.
gonna say
Because you know what?
more likely to
I want
do
to
that.
take
Depending
this
on how you
step.
raise them.
I just mean-
At the rate he going, they're gonna put other.
Both of y'all walk into a room. Both of y'all walk into a room. More times than not, they're not gonna assume you're white.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're more white passing.
Like, I don't think my nigga getting that shit.
I'm just saying, like that.
I was gonna say, hold up.
I'm just saying, like I'm talking about colorism in a way. I'm talking about straight up, like lighter, the whiter, the closest to.
Yeah.
Like to me, it's fucked up. Y'all are one and the same. Like I don't give a fuck where y'all light skinned niggas to me. You feel I'm a regular brown skin. So to me, when you walk in the room, ain't nobody gonna look at you and see a white man, bro. And they ain't gonna see that out of your baby either.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like to y'all. You know what I'm saying? And like for me with like concerning like my sons or whatever, it's like ain't not everybody is on this woke shit. You know what I'm saying?
No,
But it's
And,
woke,
like,
it's not woke.
but then wait, let me finish. I'm sorry, let me finish. But then the whole point that I'm trying to make is the way that I'm going to like politically influence my kids or whatever is to use their white assumed, white passing privilege to people who are not of this school of thought, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say they get in trouble with a cop or whatever, right? And they with their friends who look like you or look like Delancey, or look, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, I know this from his face. The cop is more likely to be violent to my son Godric's friend that looks like Delancey or Eli or Julius, you know what I'm saying? Is way more likely to be violent to them than to be violent to my son. So obviously I don't want nothing bad to happen to my kids, right? But if you are in that situation and that is inevitable, use your white assumed white passing privilege to protect your black friends. That's what I mean.
Okay, heard. I'm sorry, Blake. I ain't even making you feel because you a nigga to me. Trust and believe, bro. Ain't no question about it. I'm just saying as a brown skin. Y'all like skin.
Y'all both light skin.
Facts.
Y'all light skin.
I keep a light skin on me, so it's alright.
So, George, can you talk a little bit more about how you grew with your politics?
It started right after high school. I joined the military. I graduated in June. I was in the military by July. So, and I did that just to get out of Detroit. It was like self-preservation mostly. So I got a top secret security clearance to work under Bush, but I went to all these beautiful places because it was the war on drugs, right? Drugs are made in tropical places, you know what I mean? So I got to travel the world that way, but then Obama started to campaign, and I rejoined in 08 just to work under a black president. And I have never been to war so much, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't go to Afghanistan until I was under Obama. I didn't go to I didn't see direct combat until Israel-Lebanon war with Condoleezza Rice. So I saw the politics that were terrible for me came from black politicians, you know what I mean? Which was, I know it's probably very unique for myself and especially all the military people before me, but that was my perspective on, no, everybody's fucking killing it. All these Afghanistan babies, it's not just white people, you know what I'm saying? So they just, I felt like all politicians were terrible to me. So from there, I completely went the hippie route, you know what I mean? Like most people from the World War II in Vietnam did the same thing. As soon as you got out of the military, you went out west, smoked weed, and had sex, and was like, I'm opting out of everything, you know what I mean?
Sit on that free love shit, yeah.
Exactly. So I feel the same way. Like Russell Brand leads that in the UK. It's like you don't opt into the systematic oppression. You opt out of it and try to create our own thing, which is why I like advocate for like cryptocurrency a lot, because it's the currency, right? We all under the dollar as well, so it's like you can't help but fund the war because you use the money. You know what I mean? It all goes back to them.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point about black people integrating into this system and expecting to be some type of change maker. You know, because even for myself, I was like, Obama, yeah, I was hella happy. Like, a lot of my family went to DC for the inauguration and shit. And then what did Obama actually do? You know, it's like, if you look at like Freddie Gray in Baltimore, you had a black president, you had a black mayor, you had a black district attorney, you had black cops. So everything was black. And people were like, oh, I root for everybody black. I'm like, what does that mean though? You feel me? It's like, yeah, black cops literally kill a black man. A black district attorney let the cops go. You feel me? So it's like when we think about integration, becoming a part of this system, what does that make you? Is there a good cop? I don't think so. Is there a good DA? If the job of a DA is to lock people up, how can you be good because you engage in still in this prison industrial complex that's meant to lock us up? So I say all that to say, like, thinking about tangible solutions, you feel me, in ways we can create change outside of the system, I think is super important. You feel me? Like, all of us in our different realms of organizing our work, we do a lot of like great shit. So I think this is a good time for us to think about, A, what is the tangible shit we can do like individually and shit, and then what also is the thing we can do as this group of discourse, you feel me? Like, what can we do as, you know, not just a show and talking about it, but what is the action, you feel me? How can we be about that action as a group, as a collective? So yeah, I think that we should dive right into that. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I'm not sure what, I mean, I guess by association this has to do with like politics and advocacy and things like that, but like I'm in the process of opening up the only esports lounge in the South Bronx, and that in and of itself is going to open the door for like young black gamers to have a space to thrive, because esports is getting really huge. You know what I'm saying? More and more fighting game players are making way more and more money. A lot of those teams are very homogenous. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of those teams, like my squad in particular, Hearst Boys, is 90. Like, there's 10 of us. There's 90% black people. There's 90% like, you know, like people of color and shit. And like, you don't see that. Just like you don't see that space for young black people to organize or whatever. And like, even the space in and of itself, like that in and of itself is a hub for organization run by people that look like a lot of the players and the students, you know what I'm saying, that go to the public schools surrounding my venue. That's a place for them where me, as the founder of Hearst Boys and the person who runs the venue for the most part, where I can say, yes, y'all can absolutely organize here. Like, yes, y'all don't have to worry about nobody, you know what I mean, like eavesdropping on your shit or sabotaging your shit, because I'm here to protect that for y'all. You know what I mean? And like a lot of that stuff, like I think I don't know who it was. I think Pierre definitely mentioned it on the last episode about like the small stuff and like how that like means a lot. You know what I mean? Like a lot more than people think it does. And like small stuff like throwing a tournament that's like specifically like LGBTQ plus, like, you know what I mean? Like giving them that space or giving them, you know, the room to grow and for the community to thrive. And like a lot of that has to do with people's lack of education surrounding, political advocacy and action in my city in particular, like in the Bronx, in the South Bronx in particular. Like the people that do know are doing the work, but they are vastly outnumbered by people who don't know, and it's no fault. It's no fault of their own. It's just the resources aren't there, or the people that should be helping them aren't, and that's what I'm doing with this venue, to help uplift those people and at least give them the space to be like, yo, we can do something out of here, because these people look like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's dope, because like that could be that space where people come into and the first thought like it's about gaming, but at the same time, like you could be politicizing them small and small. You feel me? Like the best teachers,
Yeah.
you feel me? They don't even know they're getting taught. You know, so like that could be a real dope space because I know I've read some stuff like a lot. Like sometimes people in the gaming industry then get into like the military,
Yeah.
like and start like
Yeah.
drones and shit like that. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like thinking about politicization. I think that's fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
I guess when I think of like tangible things we could do, like I have a few things. Like one, Delancey definitely brought up some books, and I thought it'd be good for us to just like drop the names of the books, so people could download them. Some of these books you can access for free. You should definitely try to buy books, because I'm definitely supporting people. But a book I wanted to name was what that got me started. Black Power, Kwame Ture, Stokely Speaks by Kwame Ture. Those were two books that I actually revisit often as I grow within my black politic. Definitely helps me get like an international black politic. Then Asada's biography is another one that's incredibly powerful. If you're really trying to get into abolition work and you don't understand what it is to be an abolitionist or why, you cannot read that book without being touched. And Black Women's Liberation by Maxine Williams and a few other ones. I think that's a very important one because we spoke about like black men not really getting into writing of black women. And another one to kind of bring in that like that gender politic would be Captive Genders. That's a really dope one. And also Emergent Strategies by Auntie Andrew Marie Brown, I believe. So those are all good books. Now, when you talk about military, it made me think of alternatives that we actually need. Like this is a need I've been talking about for a while. What do we need to deter our people from becoming imperialists? Because at the end of the day, when you're involved in the military, you become imperialist. Like we have said, even us spending the dollars, So how can we deter our people? So I think about that. I think about like giving your money directly to organizations of marginalized people. So we could talk about Decrim NY. We could talk about Decrim. I believe they have like DC, and that's about like the sex workers. They got SWAP, which is about sex workers as well. And honestly, a lot of these are ran by black trans women and trans women of color. So then we go into Trans Women of Color Collective. Then we got TGIJP, which I already said, that's out in California. We got Trans Sisters of Color Project out in Detroit. We have Black Trans Media, representing my own, out here in New York City. And then another thing you could do is, we got the dope ass technology to help get people out of jail, abolition. And all you literally have to do is sign up for an account and you connect your card or your PayPal and that's it. Everything you do, your change gets rounded up and it goes straight to help bail people out of jail. And also support your local bail fund or volunteer with your local bail fund. So I just think about these things that we could do in this tangible way, where we can help. There's lobbying. I know Vocal NY and Decrim NY, they hit me up at least once a month to go lobby. And all you gotta do is, even if you're not available every month, get on their mailing list, get on their calling list, because what if that's that one Saturday that you literally ain't got nothing to do and you can go out there and you're not busy, you could be another body that goes in there to advocate for our people. So those are the things that I think of when I think of like direct action when it comes to organizing. And what we can all do is, that's tangible stuff, that's like the small steps. Somebody says like the little steps that we take.
Yeah, I think like two things that don't require much theory or language or political education is just feeding and clothing your people.
Yeah.
Like those are two things that all of us can do, and they're simple, like super easy to do. And like the little things do tend to go a long way. I think two pieces that I could highlight. You can start reading stuff by the Combahee River Collective. I think I read a bunch of pieces from them. And I want to just highlight like queer and trans writers because I think they do a good job of always writing about like politics, theories, whatever, in a way that just highlights the different intersecting identities and shit, right? So yeah, the Combahee River Collective. And then there's a piece, I don't know if they turned it into a book, but it's called Troubled Waters by Kai Davis. That's a book that I read that really helped shape my politics. Or a piece that I read that helped shape my politics.
Yeah, I would say like some tangible things. I'm always thinking about like I hate the word micro because it minimizes like the impact of what is actually going on in a person's day-to-day life. But I think about how one of the main issues that we have is that we don't treat everything as a social justice issue. And like we pick and choose what a social justice issue is versus what's a personal issue when all of it is interconnected and all of it is a part of like social justice, and we need to be simultaneously working on multiple things at the same time, not like, okay, like this month is dedicated to sex work and sex workers and decriminalizing versus this month we're gonna, now work on HIV and decriminalizing. Yeah, I think unfortunately every time you get to something, decriminalizing comes up, which I think also speaks volumes about our existence, because criminality and criminalizing of just our existence is kind of built into every single facet of every system. But I think like tangible things we can do realistically, again, treating everything as a social justice issue. And I think if you do that, then it means you have to go outside of your own oppression to see what is happening to other people who look like you that have other layers that you don't necessarily intersect with, and learning their layers and understanding their layers and understanding how you not only can help, but how you also harm them because you participate in a system that you don't know maybe is harming them. I think about the fact that like you have a whole bunch of black kids who have debt for school lunch. But then that speaks even larger volumes about how you have a whole bunch of black kids that the only time that they eat is when they go to school. So it's like we're fighting like systems on multiple fronts, but it's like what happens is we'll talk about one issue absent the other issue like they're two separate issues when they're all part of like the same system of issues. And so I do think like something we could do much better is like how we talk about issues and how we often silo issues in our community and we don't talk about them collectively in a way that actually can create, effective change. I also think about like how all of this is a radical approach in a sense. We all, saw our grandparents or saw people, right, like from the civil rights movement, and I often think about how they're treated today and how easy it is to kind of like, for some to like pass off the work they did when they were really doing, right, wrong, or indifferent, they were still just trying to get to liberation. So it was like whether you agree with Malcolm or Martin, who of course, got made the faces of what civil rights could look like, versus Huey and Stokely, who probably should have been pioneered in our community, or Marsha P. Johnson, who Fannie Lou Hamer, like people who actually took on the state in a real way that sometimes meant punching the state in the face, right?
There was never invited to no president table.
Right. Like Marsha P. Johnson wasn't going to end up at the White House or end up with a Gladder Award because she was climbing light posts and dropping bricks on cop cars and throwing bricks through windows and fighting police, right? And so it's like some tangible, like I said, some things have to look like direct action against the state. That's not always gonna be pretty or comfortable, and I think you brought it up, kind of like that whole fear thing, right? And it's like, well, if you're gonna die anyway, you might as well die fighting for something that could change lives, right? Or change your own life. And not always assume that everything has to equal death for us. And I think that's part of it too, is you brought it up about like all of this is about imagination. And all of this is about black people's imaginations having stolen, because we can't imagine an existence that doesn't look like this. And a lot of us got complacent, not because we got complacent, but because we can just look to 2 generations back and see we not where we were. And so it's hard to even think that this is our existence is bad for a lot of people. And I get it, right? So it's also like understanding, I know it's hard for you if you went to and got all these degrees and you're making all this money to think that something is wrong with your existence, right? But it's also teaching them like the reason you're here is because there is someone poor somewhere right? And or there's someone's poor somewhere for you to even be the example of what it looks like for us to be successful. And so I think teaching, I hate to even use the term, the black middle class, that there's no such thing as a black middle class, right? That like that's a myth. There is no such thing as a black middle class because it's not that many of you. You could probably count it, right? Like we could probably count how many black people make a certain amount of money in this country. And so we have to then start to, like I said, unlearn and teach our people new ways of engaging one another and understanding that you have never made it out of oppression. Like you're still oppressed and you just don't get it. And I get why you don't get it, but now I need you to get it. And so that's part of the work that I feel we have to do.
Yeah, I think I want to focus a bit, I guess, on skill sharing and free skill sharing, just because I really think that that's something that gets missed a lot of the time, and even small things like if you have something like a notary license and you are queer and trans friendly, that would change lives. Just a notary license. Just because getting things notarized when you're transitioning is a whole fucking thing, and a lot of things don't get notarized because people are shitty. Or like even just for poor black people, imagine going into certain spaces and you need even like, and that's not even legal help, that's like, but so many people have notary licenses that can be used. Or just like something that's going to be needed, that's needed right now, and I talk about this a little bit online, is someone to teach others how to read research and how to read studies and how to tell when something's real research and how to tell when something's fake. Or just like if another black person could do what I do with psychotherapy, but do that with research translation, or teaching people research skills, like how to read a research paper to know it's fake, or how to, when white people show you statistics, how to know whether or not the way they did the research was faulty. Does it play into systems? What's the message behind this research? What power is it serving? You know, like there's a lot of academics who look like us that brag that they have all these degrees, but don't use these degrees for something that's really useful. And just all the other skills that, you know, people don't necessarily think is that important. There's a lot of low-income black people that need that support. That's definitely a tangible, you know, community way. Share what you know. If you know how to repair clothes, share it. If you run a garden and you have extra food, because if you run a community garden in New York, during harvest time, you have extra food. Where is that food going? How can you give that to the people in your community? Do the people in your gardens around in your neighborhood know that you have a community garden? Who are the people are you inviting into those spaces? There's a lot of free stuff that happen in POC neighborhoods that aren't for the people that live in those neighborhoods. And it's like, you know, being intentional about the skills you share and the energy that you pour, because there's no reason that you went to college and or grad school and got all these skills and don't know how to communicate with your people. It's not that black people don't want to hear you, it's that you don't know how to talk to them. Like, speak to people as if you're equals and learn how to translate those skills in a way that can be useful to people. So that's kind of a point I want to make.
Two things really. Tangible things, I think we don't really use our influence that well. And when I'm saying that, I'm thinking about sex workers mostly, because, okay, in this country, they mostly give black people the role of entertainer, because we're just great at telling stories and making it rhyme, making it, like, you can remember the story after you. But what we don't use is sex workers, right? There has been 2 actors that have become president, right? Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. But who can take them down is the sex worker they were fucking right before they became president. Every single time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, who really has the power? she just doesn't really use it, right? She's very graceful or elegant with her power, or chooses not to use it because she feels oppressed. You know what I mean? But I know hundreds of girls that have over 100,000 followers and no one uses them to promote their message, you know what I mean? I use Cherokee Diaz all the time. She has 2 million followers. She only charges $35 for a promoting post. And I've gotten 5,000 followers from her every time. So it's like you could use that to get your message out, but we just don't because we look at them as if they don't have nothing to say. But they could twerk and make your song go viral. Why can't pay them to twerk to get your message out? I mean,
Have Farrakhan in the background while you're living.
Maybe have Discourse playing in the background.
I mean, Jay-Z said it, like he told us, dumb down for my audience to double my dollars.
Fuck Jay-Z though.
That's what I'm saying.
Facts.
That's what I'm saying. He knew that he wasn't gonna save nobody in Brooklyn, so Brooklyn stand up, and then I'll build this Barclays Center right on the top of your shit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying Jay-Z's that nigga. I'm just saying he used white tools against everybody.
Right.
Really. And then the second thing I would say, I would probably challenge people who make money on the internet who don't have to be attached to one of these metropolitan areas to move to Haiti. That's the only black sovereign nation that we have, really. So go. If you about that shit, really. But I don't see it. Everybody's kind of comfortable in their bullshit. So I would challenge people to move to Haiti, or at least try to push people to understand that there's a whole country that's waiting on you, really. I get the year of the comeback to Africa too, but I've also read listened to those stories and seen those documentaries of it's mostly black capitalists are trying to capitalize off of Africa like the Chinese are doing right now, you know what I mean? So it's like they're not really there to help, and the natives don't feel their help, you know what I mean? So there's another clash. But get out of it. Get out of the system. Like, you have the money, you have the resources, you don't have to show anything on the internet to make your money because you're making money on the internet. Take your laptop, be a digital nomad, and go find a place that's better for all of us so that we know which path to go. Everyone talks about Marcus Garvey, don't nobody fucking do anything about it, you know what I mean? Malcolm X was getting shot because he was trying to tell people how to love everybody and move, like, create your own community, but you're just not stepping up to the plate, you know what I mean? So I think we could use our influence on social media to push these ideas faster. Your account's gonna get deleted probably, but you could push it, you know what I'm saying? We could use that.
I'm reminded of like there's power in people, and the system might be powerful, but the people are more powerful. I think it's a question of organizing and organization. I think we are out organized. It doesn't make, like the white man is the devil, but the devil is organized. And how do we overcome that is I think we're talking about all these different, talents that we have, all these different skill shares that we have, right? So how do we build that into like organization? You feel me? Where we're able to get, all right, you might be great at therapy, I might be a gardener, you know what I'm saying? Like, and how can we incorporate those two things? You feel me? So I think that's the biggest thing I'm getting out of this conversation is like we really gotta organize, we gotta really tap in with each other and build build freedom. And it's gonna take time, and like I think we are oftentimes in silos, but how do we move away from that silo and build community together?
We just finished talking about the politics and community organizing. It was interesting. It was intense. It was interesting.
You just never know what you're gonna get. I actually appreciated being in a room of people who wanted to discuss politics on a communal level. A lot of times you enter spaces with people who only want to talk about voting or only want to talk about politicians or want to talk like from talking points and not actually talk about the communities that those talking points are going to harm or affect.
Being able just to, okay, we all know this, we're on the same page. All right, what's the next thing we're gonna do?
A lot of times we don't realize how much power we may have and that some people won't
take that first step until you take your first step. And so even for me to continue this conversation moving forward, I'm going to be more vocal about things that I want to do or things that I am doing, because I know that it will in turn make others who may have been fearful of doing something take that first step and do something themselves. I
have ideas and I just need to definitely put them into practice as soon as possible. This kind of I know what I have to do, it's just a matter of doing it, and this kind of reminded me of, you have to do this, so I need to do it.
People who are watching can continue this conversation by, if you have the ability to, start reading works of people with radical lenses or queer lenses or queer and feminist lenses, picking up that material.
Start talking to the people closest to you about the kind of things that's been going on. The point of this show is to kind of give people a framework, a model, a starting point, so just move like we move and start from there.